Hello and welcome everybody. This is Sergio. I'm going over a video recap lecture now titled Going Over Your Google Analytics Data. And today we're going to go ahead and go over how to interpret your Google Analytics data to improve your campaign performance. If you may have noticed, we're on the audience overview page of Google Analytics. And to kind of see some conversion data, what I want to start off with first is going into the acquisition reports so that we can look at the AdWords section here, which if you don't have your Google Analytics and AdWords linked together, your two accounts, you're not going to see this data. So the first thing I want to do is drill down on campaigns. This is going to show me a breakdown of my campaigns and how they're performing. This is not an e-commerce project. This is not going to show revenue data like the other example in the written lecture did. Instead, this is going to show phone calls and form submissions, or basically appointments booked, as the conversions here in the conversion section. The last three columns here show the conversion data, as you can see. And you could toggle between only showing phone call data or any other goals that you may have set up. In this case, I have appointments as one goal, which is through a form on their website, and phone calls. So I'm tracking the two, and I can toggle to phone calls just to see phone call data, if that's maybe a priority goal for you and you want to just take a look at that, or you can do a combination of both. So essentially what we're able to do now is see how each campaign is performing on a conversion level here. So we can see that the New York campaign has a conversion rate of 7.14%. So essentially 7 out of 100 visitors roughly are turning into either a phone call or a form submission. But some other campaigns may be performing better. Some may be performing worse. We can toggle, between the sorting options here by clicking on the column header, goal conversion rate, and it'll sort from highest to low first or lowest to high if you click it again. Same with number of goals acquired or goal completions. And you can hover over the question marks here to kind of understand what some of these other things mean, but they're pretty self-explanatory, and I've gone over them in the previous lectures, so you should be a little bit familiar as to what they all mean by now. Goal value is something that you can assign to your goals while creating a goal, which I went over. In this case, we did assign some values to the goals. The main thing that I want to look at here are a couple of things. It's going to be the conversion rate, which is obviously important to me. If I'm getting a really good conversion rate from Queens, then maybe I want to see if I can get more traffic from Queens by expanding the keywords, creating more relevant keywords to each ad group, or maybe just increasing the position if some keywords are in a lower position and not getting the right amount of clicks. Anything I can do to just increase my share from Queens, New York, if that indeed is a location that's performing relatively well compared to the others. And I think that is the case here. We've got almost about a 30% increase over the next three below it, and almost double several of the campaigns in terms of conversion rate. One thing to notice, though, in this particular case, there's only 14 clicks. So this data segment is not really that large. Typically, the larger a data sample is, the more accurate it will be. What you really want to do is start getting more than just two conversions to make an assessment of how a campaign or keyword or ad group is performing, because that data sample may not be reliable. We just may have had a good month, and next month and 8 months consecutively thereafter, it may perform poorly. So what I rather teach you how to do here is how to analyze conversion rates and data samples by relying on much bigger data samples than just a month. And you can do that by drilling back and playing with the begin date and the end date of the report that you want to look at. If I go all the way back to June and leave the end date at November 6th and hit apply, I'm now going to be able to see a much more accurate data sample, because I don't just have or however many, I think it was 14 clicks. Now I have many more. And the longer I go, for example, these campaigns here have nearly 2,000, 150 clicks around that. You have about 178 conversions. That is a pretty good number to work with instead of 2 to draw a conclusion that, hey, this campaign is performing really well or not. So the point here, guys, try to rely on large data samples, not small ones, because if you make some sort of knee-jerk reaction and increase your budget on a certain city because you saw that after 10 clicks it has a 50% conversion rate and all the other ones have a 10% conversion rate, you might end up shooting yourself in the foot. So another thing I want to show you here is how to basically use these reports to include certain things that may not be available here. So let's go ahead and click on, I'm sorry here, go back to the acquisitions. And what I'm going to do now is click on here we're on the AdWords campaign, and we're already there. I didn't have to go back. I thought maybe I would have to go back. So we're still on the campaigns, and there's a button up here called Customize. See, it's the very top. So right earlier we were looking at the table, but at the very top of the screen here, we have the Customize. And by the way, I just closed this left-hand menu here by closing it with this button. This little button helps me save room on my screen. Little handy trick there. But focus on this Customize button here for a second, because we're going to click on that, and we're going to add something that is not usually there as a default. So if we go back, you can see here that we're looking at the summary of the Explorer. But if you click on the clicks report over here, you'll notice at the bottom here, some other things will start to show up. The headings will kind of change. Now you have impressions, you have total cost, you have CTR, and the average CPC. So what you can do, if you'd like, is choose to add different headings or columns to these 5 different reports here by clicking on Customize. So here's the metric groups that we were looking at. First we had summary, and then down here is the clicks report. So you can see the different columns that are being used for each report. In the summary, we had the goal completions, goal value, and the goal conversion rate, if you remember. So what we can do, instead of showing goal value, let's say that's not that important to you, on the summary report, you can type in cost, and the AdWords metrics will be imported here, like cost per conversion. So a cost per conversion, what is that, you may ask? It's actually the amount of money you spend before you generate a conversion. Maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's a form submission, and that's going to allow you to see how much you're generating those leads for. But so maybe you're spending, in this case, the cost per conversion, they're spending about $56 for every phone call on average. Now, these are cosmetic surgeons. A $50 qualified or $55, $56 qualified phone call is actually a pretty good price for them. They have a really good call center. They turn around the leads very well. And on average, they probably make several thousands of dollars per acquisition. So now you can start to see which of the campaigns are generating a better cost per conversion. And I think that is a really great way to analyze a campaign and say, hey, these are the campaigns that are giving me the leads at $30 as opposed to $80. And that is how you start analyzing your conversion cost data to start seeing where you can improve. Maybe it's not at the campaign level. Maybe instead of doing it at the campaign level, you want to do it at the ad group level. And you can do that. So I'm going to click on the clicks column to sort from highest to low, and I'm going to drill down on the New York campaign. Now in the New York campaign, I have all my ad groups that are in my New York campaign. And I have the cost per conversion data for each ad group. So I could start to see if there are any similar trends amongst the different campaigns. Maybe a certain ad group, for example, liposuction as opposed to tummy tuck, is just performing better than all the other ad groups. Or maybe liposuction ad groups are performing much better than the tummy tuck ad groups. If you start to notice these types of patterns across many campaigns, like the different location-specific campaigns you saw on this account, then maybe it's a good idea to start either reducing the amount of money you spend on those campaigns or increasing them if they perform better than others. Looking at these types of data points at an ad group level and keyword level, which you can do by just simply drilling down into the ad group, and you'll see the keywords, and you'll also have the data here for the cost per conversion, number of conversions coming from each keyword. Right now we're in an acquisitions AdWords campaign report, but you can do the same thing, but you're not going to have the click data, like the cost per conversion. But you can start to use source and medium to look at not just your maybe AdWords traffic, but if you're doing Bing pay-per-click, you can also look at your Bing traffic and all of the excellent data that's not available on AdWords, like the percentage of new users, bounce rate, pages per session, average session duration, will be available here. Now, trying to stay on course here, I want to go ahead and go over what's next on the written lecture, which was the return on ad spend. Actually, I believe since we're not in an e-commerce account, we're not going to see that ROAS data. We'll toggle over to one now. You'll be able to see some ROAS data, which is great. It shows you the return on your ad spend based off of the revenue you've generated from your click traffic. So I'm going to toggle over to the AdWords campaigns here in a different account that has e-commerce data. We'll click on the clicks report. And as you can see, the ROAS report here or the column rather, is showing here how much of a return I've made on my ad spend. So some campaigns have a much higher return than others, and you can start to analyze with this data set too. Also, if you have e-commerce data enabled, it's going to show you your revenue per click, which is pretty interesting as well. So you can start to get a sense of as to how your campaigns, ad groups, or keywords are performing from a revenue per click standpoint. You have the option to use secondary dimensions, such as maybe you want to look at ad group and campaign. So you can add a second column here that shows now each row with a combination of the campaign and the ad group. So you can start to visualize how it's doing. Or alternatively, if you want to get rid of the secondary dimension and just look at one campaign at a time and all the ad groups within it, you can click on the campaign and see the ad groups within it. In this case, there's only one ad group, but several keywords. And this is a great report to look at now because I can see my return on ad spend for certain keywords, which I think is a fantastic way to improve, make bid adjustments, pause keywords, look for other keywords that are similar to the ones that are performing well, etc. Now, another thing that we're going to go over are the location reports, which you can find under Audience. If you click on the main tab Audience and then go to Geo, go to Location, you're going to be able to see some location data. And with this location data, you guessed it, if we click on the United States to drill down on the United States, you're going to notice a couple of things. We have the conversion data here available at a location level now. Maybe certain states are performing very well compared to others. Maybe it's a good idea to pause certain states that have not generated a single conversion over a year. Some of these things that stick out to you like a sore thumb, you may want to act on. And it's going to be different for everybody, but these are some of the best practices. If you notice Maine, for example, is performing very well, maybe you want to see what you can do to increase the number of visitors coming from Maine to see if that conversion rate for the e-commerce transaction holds above 1.5, which is a very good e-commerce conversion rate. We can toggle between e-commerce to show goal conversion rates, which is going to give us a combination of all goals, which in this case we have a couple of different forms, and we have a phone call. We can look at a phone call conversion rate report, and we can see which states are performing the best according to phone call conversion rate data. If we want to drill down into city instead of the actual state, which you can see is region as the primary dimension currently, you can toggle over to city and use city. If you want to go back to state first and then add city as a secondary dimension, you can do that. Alternatively, you can also just click on one of the states and you will drill down into the city report for that state. So these are all cities within Nevada. So now that we know how to use the geographic reports, the conversion reports, the return on ad spend reports, we can go over some things here that I think you guys might find pretty interesting, such as using advanced segments. Here at the top, we can see this little block here with a blue circle around it, which is basically saying that this segment contains all traffic data because it's an all sessions segment. Let's remove that. You can use these segments nonetheless. You can create new ones, very similar to creating remarketing lists based off of certain rules. So for example, if you want your traffic source to be filtered out to only show traffic coming from Google, you can hit traffic from Google only, give it a title, hit save. Now we should, hopefully this works, we should be able to go to, and let's make sure we get rid of the converters now, since we have 2 segments. We only want 1. So now we have the traffic from Google only segment working. And if we go to source medium under all traffic, we should see only traffic from Google. We click edit here. Filter users. Let's do filter sessions. Here we go. Here we go. So essentially, if you don't use the sessions and you use the users option only, you're only going to basically include people that are signed into Google. So I've included filter sessions, which means filter everybody, not just Google Chrome users or people that are signed into Google. Very important. So I'm glad I pointed that out. Make sure you use the filter sessions option if you're going to filter out traffic according to campaign, medium, keyword, or source. You can also use filters such as session duration per user greater than or equal to, say, for example, 2 seconds. Hit save. And now we can see that every single person here, if we sort by average session duration, there's not a single person that spent 0 time on site, which is what we set that extra rule for in the advanced segment. So again, you can custom name them Google from traffic only plus 2 seconds on site and start to work with your data using advanced segment filters like this. It's a pretty nifty little tool to use. It allows you to see things in certain ways that you might find fit for your current type of analysis. Maybe it's looking at all traffic data, but you only want to look at the people coming from Florida. You can create an advanced segment here. Let's remove this one. It automatically defaults to the all session one. So I'm going to create one here that says traffic from, let's say, Florida only. You go to demographics, and you're going to filter by region. Exactly matches Florida. Hit save. And now you have a report showing only traffic from Florida. If we go to the geo section report under audience, like we did earlier, click on the United States, we should only see Florida traffic. Boom. So now we can go into the all traffic report, look at the source medium report if we want, and we'll be able to see how Florida traffic is performing without having to do any additional filtering here with this little quick filter, which sometimes people like to use. So instead of using this quick filter, which I think you can only use maybe a certain amount of filters, you can apply an account level segment here, which filters out Florida traffic only, and still have this filter available to, say, show only organic. There we go. Here's a segment that's Florida only traffic with a quick filter that filtered out only organic traffic. And this is just, a way to be flexible with your reports. Other thing that I wanted to show you were the real-time reports on the left, which are great. You can literally see how many people are on your site, what pages they're on. You can go to locations to see what locations they're in. So it seems like we have one from Canada, one from the United States. If we click on the United States, it'll show you the states that they're in, a little map. If we click on traffic sources, we can see where they came from. Content, what pages they're on. You can toggle to the page views to see the last 30 minutes worth of page views. Pretty interesting stuff here. And if you have goals, you can see the goals as they're coming in real time. Same thing with events, which show you the number of events taking place in real time. Very interesting stuff here. There are obviously a lot of other things you can do in analytics, but these are kind of the best practices for improving AdWords performance. I hope you've enjoyed, and until next time.